Hello everybody and welcome back to the free online woodworking school where we aim to take your woodworking skills to the next level. Today's video is a nice quick one. We're going to be attaching the back panel. Let's get going. Right, so I've just popped down to the builder's merchant to get this bit of ply. It's nothing fancy, but with a quick sand and a polish, it should do the job just fine. In fact, I think it's actually beech veneer. It's quite nice that. The only trouble with getting plywood from builders merchants and stuff is that this veneer on the front is like paper thin. It's not like a standard veneer that's about 0.5 millimeter thick. It's like not even 0.1. So I've got to be really careful when sanding this. It actually feels quite smooth already. So I think just 240 grit should be just fine for it. So with regards to sizing it, I'm going to cut it about 2 millimeters oversized and then plane back to the final dimension. So when sizing large sheets like this, always make sure you're putting your measurements along the end of the board rather than just measuring in the center, because you can never be too sure if you're measuring square from the edge or not, unless you're using a ruler with a square on the end, of course. So measure up here, another one down here, and you'll notice I'm doing this with a knife as opposed to a pencil. The reason for this is because I'm going to be sizing this panel by hand, because I assume that's what a fair few of you are going to be doing. And what I don't want is breakout on the layers of ply when I'm cutting it with a handsaw. So by doing some really deep cuts with the knife, I'm going to score that grain first so it doesn't break out into the material that I'm keeping. So don't be afraid of cutting it deep here, because it will really pay off when using the saw. And what we're going to do here is actually transfer these lines onto the other side as well, so that when we're cutting we don't get splintering on the underside as well as the top. So part of the reason we're doing this 2 millimeter oversized is just in case there's any misalignment between the lines that I mark on here and the ones that are on the underside that I can't see. Okay, so holding the saw at a shallow angle when doing this will lower the risk of breakout on the underside. So I'd recommend doing that on such thin plywood. And even when cutting to this line, I'm leaving 1 millimeter oversized on this as well. Again, just in case the lines on this side don't line up with the underside. I don't want to cut to the line here and then find out I was slightly off on the underside and have all sorts of breakout there. If you look along here, you can see where it's tried to break off, but that knife line has prevented it from doing so. Look at that, that could have been all the material we wanted to keep. Right, so the order of operations for this we should be pretty familiar with by now. We're going to establish one face edge, and I'm literally going to do it all on this shooting board here. So we'll do that on first, and then get this edge and this edge square to that initial face, and we'll keep planing those down until they're able to fit in the cabinet from top to bottom, and then we'll simply just keep trimming back this edge until it's able to slot in. Pretty simple, really. Okay, so to attach the back panel, we're going to be screwing through it into the rebate. So to mark out those screw locations, firstly, measure the width of the rebate. In this case, we sized it to 10 millimeters. So your first instinct would be to try and get the screw 5 millimeters in from the edge, but I would advise against doing this. Reason being, if you make that screw head too close to the edge of the plywood, by the time the head goes in and is countersunk and everything, it might end up causing a little bit of breakage on the side of the plywood, or it might bubble out or even split, or something that you just don't really want happening. So instead of making it halfway in that rebate, I would advise making it a little bit biased towards the inside of the cabinet. In this case, I'm literally going to make it 6 millimeters, because for this part of the cabinet, it doesn't matter if the screw is a little bit closer to the inside, because we're going to be using a very, very small screw to attach the back, and the thread is going to be nowhere near breaking out on the inside face. So work out which face you want on the inside of the cabinet. In this case, it's going to be this way round. And you're going to set the marking gauge to 6 millimeters, and we'll have that ready to scribe some lines in. Now what you could do is just scribe down both the sides and then start screwing into it, but that's going to leave you with a marking gauge line afterwards. And we can quite easily avoid that by marking out the locations of the screws first. So that's what we're going to do. So on these bottom corners, I'm going to start by measuring up 7.5 millimeters. The reason I've gone for 7.5 is because that puts it halfway on the bottom stretcher and also the top stretcher, which is 15 millimeters thickness overall. So 7.5 up and then 6 millimeters in from the side, and we've got a little crosshair there. So we'll do that on each corner. So then we'll just measure the distance between those 2 points, which is 380 millimeters, let's call it. So 380, and we can either divide that by 10 to give us 38 millimeter spacing, or divide it by 5 and get us 76, which seems more sensible. So we'll go for 76 millimeter spacing between each of these screws. And when you're doing this, remember to keep that datum surface at the bottom of the ruler. Don't start measuring 76, then measuring 76 from there, because you might end up with a weird spacing at the end. Instead, keep it fixed and go 76 plus 76 equals 152 plus 76, 228 plus 76 equals 304. Which is there, and then we'll just confirm it, plus 76 equals 380, boom. And then on each of those markings, you can then put your marking gauge to give you very precise crosshairs that you don't need to try and scrub away afterwards. Okay, and then distance these, so that is about 230. So 230, let's see, divided by 4 equals 57, so that's close. 230 divided by 3 is 76. How about that? Right, we'll take that, 76. And for this one, we're going to reset the gauge to 7.5 millimeters, because that will put us in the middle of the stretchers. And then we're also going to be screwing it into the back of the shelf. So to do this, pop the panel in place, put a little mark on the edge, which is central on that shelf. Same again here, get it locked into the rebate first, little mark, and then square those up from the base. And finish up with a pokey tool. Right, so to begin with, we're going to pilot everything. So that pilot drawer is going to go through the back and into the carcass below, and then we're going to remove the panel, change all of those into clearance holes, and then countersink them and attach the back. When doing this, to prevent accidentally blowing through to the inside of the carcass, make sure that when you're drilling these ones, you're looking up the length of the cabinet so you can see if the drill is going in square. However, when working on the shelf, looking at it from this angle is no good. Instead, you want to turn it 90 degrees and look at it along the length of the shelf, likewise for the top and the bottom as well, just to make sure that your drill bit is heading in the right direction. And there you go, nice and easy. That is how you attach the back of the cabinet. So as always guys, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to press the like button and subscribe if you haven't already by pressing the big round button to the left hand side of this video. You can move on to the next lesson by clicking on the link below. I will see you there.